The President. Good morning, members, government officials. We resume the debate on increasing the average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis to build a blissful Northern Metropolis ideal for living. Mr. Andrew Fan. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. YIU Ming's motion. The 15th five-year plan stipulates that we need to speed up the development of the Northern Metropolis. So NM is not just a new development area. We need to make it livable and suitable for working. We need to adopt a macro perspective in planning it. I agree with the motion that we need to build a blissful Northern Metropolis ideal for living. President, we have a high population density, we have limited living space, our property prices is expensive. According to 2021 population census, the average living space per person in Hong Kong is just 16 square meters. That's far lower than that of Singapore, Shanghai, and other neighboring cities. This affects the living conditions of our people, and this undermines our overall competitiveness. Northern Metropolis, as the core of our territory, will have 3,000 hectares of new development land, which will provide 500,000 new flats. So I think that we need to improve people's living environment in the Northern Metropolis. If we can increase the average living space per person there, we can encourage people to move to NM and enhance our attractiveness to foreign talents. This will help us achieve high-quality development there. In order for us to improve the living conditions of the people, we need to address various issues. In the policy address of the Chief Executive last year, it is said that we already have spade-ready land enough for building housing for the next 10 years. In the report of the Hong Kong 2030 Plus, it is said that in 2048, we need 7,000 hectares of land for housing. This shows that apart from the Northern Metropolis, we also need more land to develop over the long term. President, land development is about long-term planning. When we come across difficulties, we will not be able to transform some land into spade-ready ones. I have a few suggestions for the administration. First, I think that the government need to continue to reclaim land and create land. Reclamation is the most effective ways for us to increase land supply. So I think that the government should continue to identify locations for reclamation so that we can create land for housing. Second, the government can unleash the development potential of remote islands. In Hong Kong, we have larger islands that is habited by people with basic infrastructures. As long as we have bridges connecting the islands to the town center, then we can unleash the potential of these islands. Apart from nearshore reclamations, the government needs to develop islands. This will alleviate the housing pressure in the town center while vitalizing the remote islands. Third, the government needs to look into the development potential of fringe areas of country parks. Country parks account for 40% of our land. There is 45,000 hectares of it. So I think that we need to dynamically review the eco value of country park fringe area to unleash potential. As long as we adopt a multi-pronged approach, continue to flexibly develop and create land, Hong Kong's people's living environment can be improved. President, Hong Kong government is now formulating our own 5-year plan. This is an important opportunity for us to review and plan for our land development. We need to have enough land to support not just the Northern Metropolis, but the overall development of Hong Kong. And this is how we improve people's living environment, enhance our livability, and build a blissful city for our people. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Kasaf-Tam. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. YIU Ming's motion and also the amendments moved by other members. The Northern Metropolis is not only the new economic driver for Hong Kong, it will also be the ideal space for creating the livable area. It is also the goal of the Northern Metropolis. Apart from building a suitable living space and instill in the people a sense of bliss, we want to improve infrastructure and create jobs. So all the supporting facilities are important. I hope that the Northern Metropolis can be a new community for demonstration for the new arrivals as well. We have the lowest per capita living space comparing to Shenzhen and Singapore. And for public rental housing, the allocation standard per person is just 7 square meters. There is room for improvement. This term of government has secured sufficient land to meet the housing needs in the coming 10 years. I hope that members of the public will be able to live in bigger and more comfortable homes. And one of the major sources of housing supply is Northern Metropolis. Other members already talked about raising the per capita living standards, or per capita living space. However, whilst I fully agree with all these ideas, we must ensure that the housing supply and the waiting time will not be affected, so that even for private housing, they remain affordable by all, so that we don't have to live in shoebox flats. This is the real aspiration of the people. Now, for the new housing estate in Fanling. Now, the population intake has not yet begun, but it has won a lot of praises because it's just 10 minutes walk from LEUNG market, and it's easy to access different community facilities. The transport network is above average, and the Fanling Bypass East section was commissioned earlier this month, and this will cope with the increased transport traffic because of increasing population. Now, together with the New Territories Association, I've always been promoting an infrastructure-led approach. We need to make sure that all the supporting facilities are in place before people move into a new community. So we need to expedite the construction of the Northern Metropolis railway and also highway to make sure that the transport network is ready to serve the people moving in. It is also important to have regard to work-life balance. There should be sufficient jobs for people living in the same area to ensure people don't need to travel for a long distance, so that they can have time for themselves after work, and this will enhance their sense of bliss. This has always been what I've strived for. Now, community planning should also cover social services, healthcare, and leisure facilities. There should be childcare, support, and education facilities. Now, for young people, the community should come with parks, sports centers, cultural centers, and for elderly, there should be good healthcare support as well, so as to enhance the quality of living of the people. The 15th five-year plan expressly promotes the development of high-quality development of the property sector. Now, Hong Kong is drawing up a 5-year plan. We must also dovetail with the national 15th five-year plan as well. So apart from pursuing higher production, we should also pursue quality homes. The government should grasp the opportunity and be visionary. The government should also be pragmatic. Using Northern Metropolis as a pilot, the per capita living space should be raised. There should also be good infrastructural and community support facilities, and that this experience can be extended to the whole of Hong Kong, so that we make Hong Kong more livable. I so submit. Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. YIU Ming for moving the original motion, so that we can have a discussion on addressing the shortcoming of low per capita living space in Hong Kong. Now, the government has drawn up concrete and specific figures as reported in the Hong Kong 2030 Plus, and in the 2022 policy address, the government introduced a minimum size requirement for newly built HOS and PRH flats, and for private housing, there is also the minimum size requirement imposed in the land lease conditions. Now, this is widely supported by the community. There is vision, there is action, there is also consensus in the community. So where does the problem lie? We must first of all have sustainable and ample supply of land in order to catch up with the shortfall in housing supply. There should be sufficient land reserve so that we can improve the quality of living, including living space. Northern Metropolis is very important. We also need to have regard to the reality. Now, for the minimum size requirement, this is akin to setting standards for basic housing units. But it doesn't mean that the minimum size of a flat is the same as the per capita living space. For a 26 square meter flat, accommodating 1 or 2 persons will be totally different. Now, even if we adopt a higher standard, using the because of the existing building block, it would be very difficult to introduce this standard for all buildings. We also have some existing and old buildings that are not of good quality. The third point is that we should have regard to affordability because of the larger flats and the high prices. Now, in future, the government should also provide subsidies to help public rental housing tenants move up the ladder and buy HOS flats of a bigger size. This will be the perfect solution. However, for private housing, we need to have regard to the market rates because not everybody could afford a bigger flat. That's also the reason why we have caged homes. Say, for a 400 square foot flat in the mid-levels of Central, it will definitely be more expensive than, say, a village hut in Campton. So that's also the problem with URA redevelopment projects. For Northern Metropolis, there should be proper planning in terms of new buildings and redevelopment projects so as to truly raise the per capita living space. Now, we're used to living in a cramped environment. Hong Kong is densely populated, but it doesn't mean that it's not comfortable. We have very high density. That means it's easy to go from one place to another. In just an hour, you can go from Yuen Long to Tseung Kwan O or from Aberdeen to Sha Tau Kok. So there should be options for everybody. That is why the government should expedite the development of the Northern Metropolis. We should ponder this question, and that is, we should give play to our advantage of being a densely populated place without affecting the transport infrastructure and the capacity in general. What can be done to encourage private developers to provide bigger flats? The government is used to adopting the plot ratio as the tool of planning. That's how they do the math. Well, say for a 10,000 square foot site with a plot ratio of 5, that means the average size of flats would be 500 square feet, and that means 100 units. If we're able to increase the plot ratio by 20%, then the flat size can be increased by 20% as well, and that means going from 500 to 600 square foot flats with the same number of flats available. Will it pose a major burden on, say, the traffic network or the environment? This is something we need to consider. Perhaps we can revise the town planning guidelines and the land lease guidelines so that we will not compromise supply because of the requirement to build bigger flats. Now, I think we need another debate to discuss construction costs, but I support the motion and all the amendments. Mr. Aaron Bob. President. Now, there is a saying that we don't need a huge home as long as it's tidy and neat and well ventilated, illuminated. But when it comes to per capita living space in Hong Kong, I must thank Mr. YIU Ming for moving this motion because the Northern Metropolis development is just beginning. It's time for us to consider what can be done to improve the living environment and the quality of life because it affects physical and mental health According to government statistics, the per capita living space per person in Hong Kong is just about 160 square feet in general. It's far lower than the global standard. Now, the government introduced a new requirement in 2020 that is a minimum size requirement. The size of flats should be not less than 26 square meters for newly built flats. And according to a survey conducted by or research conducted by LegCo, this will be higher than the existing per capita living space for Singapore. That's 35 square meters. In order to meet the target of having bigger homes, we need to start with Northern Metropolis. 3,000 hectares of new development land will become available in Northern Metropolis, and 1,400 hectares will be available for development in the coming 10 years. And that's the spade-ready sites. We need to enhance land planning so that, if need be, we can raise the development density for sites near the stations. We can increase plot ratio, just like what Mr. Andrew Lam said, so as to increase the capacity and increase the per capita living space. In fact, we can also review the allocation standard per person for public rental housing, see if there is room to relax the standard, so that if we're able to increase the per capita living space and build larger flats, we can accommodate more families who'd like to live with their elderly family members. Now, we can also unleash the potential for mixed-use sites. As for private market, we should, of course, have regard to the market forces, because corrections will take place naturally. The government's relaxation of rules will also help private developers make a change. Apart from living in bigger flats, it's equally important to have the supporting facilities. They include, say, shopping malls, markets, schools, hospitals, and likewise, we should have regard to the design of streets and the provision of parks, public open space, sports facilities, etc. In fact, the Planning Department published a report of the Hong Kong 2030 Plus and conducted a feasibility study on promoting a healthy lifestyle. A dynamic design should be adopted so as to improve the living environment and encourage people to be more active. The East Coast Precinct walkway, as well as the Crossway Link in Tseung Kwan O, will be the first that allows cycling track and walkway to go together. I hope the Northern Metropolis can incorporate a similar concept so that we can achieve work-life balance. Now, we have a very nice harbor view. We also have mountains and trails suitable for hiking. We have cycle tracks and jogging trails as well. We should be able to attract talents from around the world and middle-class families to live in the area so as to enhance a sense of bliss. Now, this is a major project, President, when it comes to increasing the per capita living space. With the development of the Northern Metropolis, a multi-pronged approach should be taken to build bigger and more comfortable homes for our people. I support the motion and all the amendments.
Ms. Judy Kwok. I thank Mr. YIU Ming for moving his motion so that we can discuss this motion about building a thriving Northern Metropolis. What does being thriving mean? It means having a meal together in the family, or it can mean owning a home. The home doesn't have to be big. You just have to be able to fit in a crib, a bookshelf. A thriving place needs to have enough space. For a family of four to be stuck in a flat of just over 100 square feet, where you have a bunk bed and children have nowhere to do their homework, that's bad. The per person living space in Hong Kong is 172 square feet. That's smaller than other cities like Shanghai and Paris. The public housing size area has not been adjusted since 1992. It's still at no less than 7 square meters or 75 square feet per person. Land supply is strained in Hong Kong. We cannot be too ambitious in the living space per person. The Northern Metropolis is a great opportunity to turn things around. In the NM, there will be 3,000 hectares of new development land. In the next 10 years, there will be 1,800 hectares of space-ready sites, and that area will make up 40% of new public housing units in the next decade. That's a great opportunity. If we cannot be more ambitious in the Northern Metropolis, there will be nowhere for us to try things out. Here are my suggestions. The public rental housing allocation criteria have been left unchanged for 3 decades. That's against the reasonable expectations of the community. The per person living space is 14.1 square meters, but not all public rental flats meet this requirement. Let's turn the NM into a pilot site. Let's go to 10 square meters per person for public housing flat, so that each person will get bigger space. And that's how we can offer bigger and better homes. We should also have more larger flats in the housing mix. I'm looking at the surveying side of things. I know bigger flats mean costlier flats. There will be fewer flats. But you can reconcile quantity and quality. The composite waiting time is down to 4.7 years for public rental housing. It's time to improve the living quality. We should also leverage market forces. We can adopt planning tools to encourage private developments to provide larger flats in greater numbers. Creating bigger homes is not just for the public market, it's also for the private market. We can guide the private market. In London, back in 2011, the London government changed the rules. The minimum living area was made part of London's plans. It's at least 37 square meters for a home for one. There are also requirements for the area of the bedroom, and that is now London's statutory requirement. We can learn from this practice. In the land sale conditions for the Northern Metropolis, we can impose requirements about the size area of flat. We can also offer concessions by way of the plot ratio. We used to offer floor area concessions for green building standards. We can apply the same practice to bigger flats. We have to work to earn a thriving community. The Northern Metropolis is a place for us to redefine our living standards. We have the land, the data, the experience. We also need the resolve. We don't want our future generations to blame us for not going far enough today. I so submit I support Mr. YIU Ming's motion. Professor Lau Chi-peng. President, I support Mr. YIU Ming's motion on increasing the average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis to build a blissful Northern Metropolis. I also support all amendments. Back in the days when I was at primary school, my textbook said, land is at a premium, we are short of land. I used to live in the urban areas. I experienced myself the pressure of high-density living, and then I moved to the new territories. Then I realized we had a huge swath of undeveloped land. The land shortage is an artificial phenomenon created by land policy. Since 1997, increasing land supply has been a priority for successive terms of government. The current term of government is taking forward the Northern Metropolis. That's a way to deal with this challenge. To create a thriving Northern Metropolis, we will have to look to history. We will have to look at the thinking behind the planning for the new territories. That's how we can identify the root cause. In 1898, there was the new territories lease taken out by the British. They took the land from perpetual land holding and turned it into something else. And then town planning rules in Hong Kong Island and Kowloon were extended to the new territories. That meant a lower plot ratio in the new territories, whereas the plot ratio was much higher in Kowloon and Hong Kong, and that was a wasteful way to use the land in the new territories. The Northern Metropolis is in this low-density area of the new territories. Without reform to this institutional setup, it will be hard to raise the living space per person. A legacy issue requires a solution. In 1937, there was this new Kowloon area where the high plot ratio of urban areas was applied, and that provided homes for 1.5 million people. We can adopt the same thinking in the Northern Metropolis. We can massively ramp up the plot ratio to boost housing supply in the NM. To maximize land use in the Northern Metropolis, there are challenges. We must confront two problems head-on. First, bringing together the fragmented land titles. Second, the obsession with land or property as a way to build wealth. On bringing together land titles, the government can resume land, and where appropriate, we can apply the thinking behind land swap arrangements. We can offer land bonds in lieu of cash compensation. Landowners should get the right to develop private housing for the land they have. That's how we can offer fair compensation and also resume land efficiently. The second challenge will require solidarity in the community. We'll have to work together. Otherwise, before the business opportunities from the NM become results, real estate investors will get moving. They will make the Northern Metropolis a terrible place to live. After 1997, the same laws applied to the new territories, Kowloon and Hong Kong. The Northern Metropolis is an opportunity for us to sort out our land use regulations. For Hong Kong's long-term well-being, we should take action to create town planning rules that our posterity will be proud of as we submit. Mr. Lam Chen-sing, land is at a premium in Hong Kong. People want roof over their heads. Bigger homes are a luxury. The per-person living space in Hong Kong is behind other places like Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Singapore. The government has worked toward raising the living space per person. Back in 2022, for new housing projects, the saleable area has to be at least 26 square meters, so that ended nano flats. For public rental units, with the exception of units for 1 or 2 people, the area will be at least 21 square meters. For basic housing units, the minimum area is 8 square meters. To resolve the problem, we will need enough land. The Northern Metropolis is a major opportunity to us to resolve the housing problem. The motion proposes increasing the living space per person. I support this direction, but we have to be realistic. Let's look at the latest composite waiting time for public rental housing. That number has gone down. Still, it's 4.7 years. If we relax the housing allocation criteria, the bigger flats may mean fewer flats, and that will add to the waiting time. In Yunlong, Tinshui, Fanling, which are developed areas, they are all inside the Northern Metropolis. If we raise all these criteria, what will be the implications for public housing waiting time? We have to be mindful of these factors where possible and viable. Can we really increase the living space per person? We should also make use of modular integrated construction, MIMAP, and also construction robots to boost building efficiency. We should build faster to offset the impact of bigger flats on the waiting time. On encouraging private developers to build bigger flats, there's a dilemma. Building bigger flats means more expensive flats. Are those flats going to be affordable? That's a question. Housing prices are also going up again. We can encourage private developers to build bigger flats, but the better way to do is to improve the housing ladder. We should increase the share of bigger flats in the housing mix. We can launch bigger flats for the starter home scheme to help set the sandwich class and those of less means to get on the housing ladder. 3 years ago, there was the newborn baby flat selection scheme. Families with newborn babies get 1 year shaved off their waiting time. We should also give families with newborns faster access to bigger flats. So these families should get priority in choosing bigger flats. We should also offer maybe subsidies or concessions in mortgages. I so submit. I support the motion.
Mr. Alex Fan. President, I support the original motion and all of the amendments. In the report of 2030 plus, the SAR government have already increased the assumption of average flat size. I recognize the direction adopted. I'd like to talk about two different areas. First, spatial design, market mechanism, and expansion of system. This is how we can build a blissful Northern Metropolis comprehensively and turn it into improvement in people's livelihood and living conditions. By improving our living conditions, we need to make the spatial design more flexible. We can learn from Singapore. The loading wall of Singaporean houses are usually placed at the corner. This allows people to more flexibly design their interior area. In October 2024, Singapore also rolled out a white subsidized housing. It means that for the first 310 flats, they adopt an open design with no loading wall. This allows people to design their flats on their own more flexibly, and so that they will not have to move so frequently when they have children. I know that the government are already adopting an open design in transitional housing. I hope that they will introduce a relevant design in the Northern Metropolis as well. By adopting flexible design, we can improve people's living conditions, and in the Northern Metropolis, we should achieve breakthroughs in two different areas. First, we should extend this concept of design that is modifiable. Second, I think that we need to consider using MIC in the Northern Metropolis, or relocate the loading wall to the corner to relax the structural restrictions. Second, we need to encourage developers providing larger flats. The motion says that we need to encourage developers to increase the average living space in person in the Northern Metropolis. I fully agree with that. According to the 2021 population census, our median living space per person is about 172 square feet. That's lower than that of Singapore, which is 355 square feet. Some 220,000 people living in subsidized or subdivided units with an average living size of about 6 square meters. So I think that we have to relax the plot ratio for developers in order for us to build larger flats. In 2025 policy address, it is said that we allow 7 redevelopment projects to increase the plot ratio by 20% and transfer the unused plot ratio to new development area. According to international estimates, by increasing the 20% plot ratio, we can bring in extra profit to developers by 15 to 20%. I think that we need to ask developers to sign some undertaking promising that they will build larger flats with more affordable prices for the people. Also, we should implement a livable design, a pilot scheme. When we assess the tenders from developers, we should not just assess the price, but also the median living space for the flats, the community facilities provided. This is how we encourage developers to refrain from building nano flats. President, the Northern Metropolis is an opportunity for us to improve people's living conditions and environment. I hope that the government will incorporate spatial design and market economy into their plan so that we can build a more livable city for the people. Ms. Nixie Lam. Thank you. I support Mr. YIU Ming's original motion. People want to work and live in peace and contentment. They all want to live in a bigger flat. This is our common goal. The Northern Metropolis is a major driving force for our economy and is a project for us to improve people's life and is a key component to our long-term population policy. When we collect views for the 5-year plan, I understand that there is a strong consensus in the community. That is, we should not rely just on short-term relief measures. We need to seize the opportunities posed to us by the 15th 5-year plan to create a long-term sustainable plan for the people and the business that can sustain our high-quality development of our population. We all agree that living space is not just about housing, it's also about family and fertility. Many families live in small and crowded environments. This discourages people from creating a family or having children. According to the Women's Alliance study, it is said that 80% of interviewees think that because of the economic pressure and small living space, they are not motivated to have children. And there is another study showing that because of lack of homes or stable home or crowded living space, many young couples choose to just reside together instead of getting married. And many of them, because of those reasons, gave up on having children. All these structural problems undermine our competitiveness in attracting foreign talents. So by creating a livable city, we can improve our population policy and attract more talents. Given our limited space in the territory and exhaustion in the plot ratio in the town center, it's difficult for us to create a bigger living space for the people. But in the Northern Metropolis, we're going to provide more than 3,000 hectares of new development land. It can offer some 500,000 flats. So I think that we now have this opportunity to replan and review our strategies. In the Hong Kong 2030 Plus report, we have already adopted the assumption of having a 10 to 20% increase in the average flat size. So I think that the government is determined in building larger flats for the people. So I think that we should First of all, relax the allocation criteria for public rental housing so that tenants can live in a bigger space. For private housing, we used to have so many nano flats where kitchens, living room, and bedroom are in the same place. The living environment of people living in those nano flats was bad. According to the 2022 land sale conditions, the government introduced these restrictions that the flat should be at least 280 square feet. I think that this is a great start. We should introduce, say, for example, concessionary measures in the land lease conditions to encourage developers to provide a better and larger living space. This is how we can make a community more livable. Northern Metropolis is a key project that affects whether Hong Kong will continue to be sustainable, will continue to be a livable city. So I think that as long as we have sufficient ancillary facilities, we will be able to attract foreign talents and keep our families here. I support the motion. Mr. Jonathan Lampert. Thank you, President. I support Mr. YIU Ming's motion and the other 4 members' amendment. How should we define bliss? Very often, we blame the crowdedness of a city on population density. The key is that we need to make 7 million Hong Kong people feel bliss when they live here. I visited mainland very often recently. I'm not sure if you notice that people living in big cities such as Shenzhen and Guangzhou, Chengdu smile more. I think that that's because people living in those cities are happy with their lives. People living in those cities were able to purchase clothes and food at a very affordable price. Now, in terms of mobility and housing, the average living space per person on the mainland is much larger than us. They have sufficient greenery in the city, and that's what makes people happy. The report of Hong Kong 2030 Plus, it is said that we want to increase the average living space per person to 215 and 237 square feet. I think that the key does not lie with the figure, but whether someone can actually own their private space. They should have a place where they can think, they can enjoy their lives. The public rental housing flat may be large enough for a singleton elderly, but for families with 3 to 4 people, their flats are usually very small. And when a whole family live in a small space, then there will be arguments. So for us to improve Hong Kong, we need to solve all the housing problems by increasing the average living space per person. I suggest that the government streamline approval procedures, provide actual incentives for developers to build bigger flats. We need to allow people to have a balcony in their home so that they can breathe in some fresh air. When we improve people's living conditions, we need to also have regards to the financial feasibility of the project and respect business logic. So I think that the government, when they try to implement the visions, offer incentives and flexibilities for the developers. When we try to ask them to build a bigger flats, we need to make sure that developers obtain reasonable return. In terms of building design, we need to adopt a people-centered approach. When people get home after work, if they have a balcony, then they can enjoy their own time. I think that we should learn from Singapore. They allocate younger people to the town center and elderly people to the new territories. In the public housing where elderly people live, there will be sufficient greening space and ancillary facilities to encourage exchange. I think that we will be able to realize such vision in the Northern Metropolis. President, a blissful life is more than just a slogan. It's all about details. Apart from increasing the living space per person, we need to also provide sufficient ancillary facilities, and we need to keep a culture. We have to regulate and retain our unique features such as Tai Pai Tong, so that people can have a social life after they work. After getting off work, they should be able to enjoy their friends and food at Tai Pai Tong. And I think that if we can increase the people's living space, people can live with a respect. And by that, people will be able to have a smile on their face. I so submit. I support the motion.
Mr. Chris Ip. President, Hong Kong people live in small homes. They live in expensive homes. This is a long-standing problem facing Hong Kong. Now, in the past, we used to call people poor because they lived in a home with nothing in it. But now, in Hong Kong, we want a home to be at least of a certain size so that we can store all our personal belongings and furniture in a very tidy manner. According to the census data in 2021, the median per capita living space in Hong Kong is just 16 square meters, far below major cities such as Singapore, Shenzhen, Tokyo. We have 7.4 million people in Hong Kong. We live, however, on only 72% of developed land. Now, the Northern Metropolis will be the major economic driver. It will provide 3,000 hectares of new development land, which is expected to churn out 500,000 residential units. So it is an important opportunity for us to improve people's living environment. We have 2.7 million people living in various forms of public housing, PRH or HOS. It's a major source of accommodation for grassroots. The allocation standard per person for PRH is now 7 square meters, and for public rental housing built between 2020 and 2024, over half of them belong to small-sized flats below 21 square meters. To some extent, this accounts for the shoebox living environment in Hong Kong. Now, with acute shortage of land in the past, I fully appreciated the government's approach of providing smaller PRH flats. But in the future, with long-term housing strategy and also land from the Northern Metropolis, which can provide 500,000 units, we should be able to improve the per capita living space and allocation standard for PRH so as to improve the grassroots living environment. Now, the administration has confirmed that in the planning of Northern Metropolis, the assumption of 10 to 20% increase in the average flat size has been adopted, so that bigger homes will be built. And this is, of course, a very important step. For new public rental housing projects in the Northern Metropolis, I hope that the allocation standard per person will be increased from 7 square meters to 8.4 square meters. That is up by 20%. And that the flat size mix should also be suitably adjusted for public rental housing so that more units for 3P, 4P, even 5P households can be provided. Because at the moment it's far below 50%. We should increase the ratio to over 50%. There should also be other subsidized sale flats such as HOS and GSH so that more grassroots residents will be able to buy their own homes. We should also take an innovative planning approach for Northern Metropolis. We should optimize the use of resources so that all community facilities required by the new development areas such as community halls, social welfare facilities, markets are concentrated in the near the residential neighborhoods so as to provide a synergy and provide more support for the community. And for the areas saved, we can turn them into, say, a public open space or even car parks and other livelihood facilities. Now, President, Hong Kong people always laugh at themselves. They say that they live in shoebox flats and cage homes. It shows that we have really small living space, and this is a long-standing problem. I hope the government will grasp the opportunity. With the Northern Metropolis development coming on stream, the government should strive to increase the per capita living space for grassroots so that we have a sense of bliss and a sense of gain. I support Mr. Yiu Ming's motion and other amendments. Mr. Lothair Lam, I thank Mr. Yiu for the original motion. Now, it is a common wish to have bigger and more comfortable homes. Now, the Northern Metropolis will churn out a large number of flats, and we do hope that the per capita living standard can be raised so that we can live in bigger and happier homes. I agree with the original motion that we should expedite the development in the Northern Metropolis. There should be livelihood facilities in support of the community to make it ideal for living. Transport infrastructure is crucial. At the moment, we have the NOL line, the Northern Metropolis Highway, and also the Hong Kong-Shenzhen West Rail. These are in the pipeline, and I'm concerned about the connectivity with the Hong Kong International Airport. I'm happy to learn from the strategic blueprint published by the government earlier that there'll be a study on extending the Hong Kong-Shenzhen West Rail to the south, so that the airport will be better connected to the Northern Metropolis. The study is expected to be conducted within this year. The Northern Metropolis will accommodate 1/3 of Hong Kong's total population in the future. From residents' perspective, it will, of course, be a good news if they're able to go to the airport through a direct route. It can also help divert passengers and alleviate the burden on existing railway network. I hope a specific timetable can be rolled out as quickly as possible. Now, the NOL line will be the backbone of the railway system in the area. It connects Northern Metropolis to NT Northwest and Northeast. Is very important for commuters. The government should conduct a study so as to further enhance the connectivity of the Northern Metropolis. Now, the SAR government earlier announced that it is now discussing with the mainland counterparts on the extension work, and we can connect Northern Metropolis with Shenzhen, and this will also facilitate residents living in Northern Metropolis to go up north. There will also be a more flexible mode of commuting for mainland residents to reach Hong Kong International Airport. We have a very mature international airport. We are the transit hub, and if we're able to enhance connectivity with the mainland, I'm sure that this will help bolster Hong Kong's status as an international aviation hub. Autonomous driving is also a major technology. It will become a necessity in the future. It will provide convenient mode of commuting for residents in the future. Now, there are trial projects in Tung Chung and West Kowloon, but we are still lagging behind on autonomous driving comparing to the rest of the world. We need to speed things up. Northern Metropolis will provide the ideal testing ground. So at the early stage, in the planning stage, we can at least provide infrastructure to support autonomous driving, such as high-speed communication network. Now, in terms of policies, there is flexibility to promote development of the Northern Metropolis. So we have all the favorable conditions. I note that the government has indicated that it will proactively promote the development of application scenarios and trials of autonomous driving. I hope that the relevant infrastructure can be enhanced as well, so that without compromising road safety, there will be a wider scope of testing for autonomous driving in the NM. I so submit. Professor Priscilla Leung. President, I speak in support of the original motion, that is to increase the average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis to build a blissful Northern Metropolis ideal for living. Now, I understand from members who have taken part in this debate that they would like to increase the average living space per person so that we live in bigger homes. I fully support these ideas, but let me share with you my experience. When I grew up, I used to live with a family of 7 in a 380 square foot home, and it took me 2.5 hours to go to McDonald's in order to study. But I grew up happily. So I think we do need a bigger living space, but it's all about government planning. We want to build a blissful Northern Metropolis, but today I'd like to focus on the supporting facilities. Now, this is something that I'm very familiar with. Now, in fact, I want to talk about Kai-Tak. I'm familiar with Kai-Tak since I've been serving the area since 2014. Now Kai-Tak has been well developed. It has taken more than 10 years, and before that, this place was simply left idle for 20 years. Now, it's very important to have supporting facilities, because when people move in, they need other forms of support, hospitals, schools, from kindergartens, primary, secondary schools, even universities. These are very important. In fact, Sham Shui Po is a good example. After the City University of Hong Kong was set up there, people started to move in. It then transformed into a middle-class neighborhood with very good consumption power. So about Blissful Northern Metropolis, let me show you this. In 2012, I was joined by 2 other aides, and Mr. Kissen Yang and Mr. Scott Leung, who supported me in the election, are now also LegCo members. Now, we wanted to address issues such as noise and odor at the waterfront in West Kowloon. And then recently, when I talked to residents in Kai-Tak, we find that we've been able to achieve this, and that is now there is the green and smart mass transit, and that this is however wrong timing, because the system should be put in place in 2018 at the time of the population intake. However, because of problems with construction costs, Professor Priscilla Leung, this is a motion debate on the Northern Metropolis. I know that, President. I really want to say this to the Secretary. Please do allow me to finish. Because of noise, people continue to suffer there. So let me say this to the Secretary. There would be a mismatch if you do not address this issue in the development of the Northern Metropolis. Let me turn to other supporting facilities. Now there are people who would like to have private secondary schools, international schools there, but we need a blueprint. So my first list relates to healthcare. With population intake, there may be a greater burden on the healthcare system in the new territories. The second on the list is transport infrastructure. Now, there'll be an influx of population within 5 years. Still, and yet the spur line won't be commissioned until 2034. So we should improve transport infrastructure. Don't let people move in until the station is ready. The third point is about tech facilities and town halls, whether we're able to attract high-end talents to go there. Depends on whether we can run, say, kindergartens, etc. We need the supporting facilities. These are intertwined. There should be a proper housing ladder in the Northern Metropolis, and that we should be able to find ways to attract high-end talents to go there. I so submit.
提醒議員。
A reminder to members, in accordance with the House rules, there's a time limit for this debate. We have to conclude the debate at 11:43 a.m. today. At roughly 11:16 a.m., I will invite the mover to speak on the amendment, and then we will deal with the remaining procedure. We still have more than a dozen, roughly 20 members waiting to speak. Please be brief in your speech so that more members will get to speak. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you. I thank Mr. YIU Ming for moving his motion. His motion is about living space. There's also a reference to a great place to live in a blissful or thriving northern metropolis. So what do we mean by a place that is a great place to live, and what do we mean by blissful northern metropolis? I have moved to the northern district. There are farmers, there are grassrooters, they ask for different things. By ideal for living, this place has to be desirable in many ways: living space, safe streets, accessibility, social amenities like schools, clinics, social welfare facilities, economic opportunities, meaning jobs. It's like the concept with the airport city. The airport city needs to offer tens of thousands of jobs. There's a heavy downpour today. Even lawmakers are late in arriving at the LegCo complex today. Imagine what happens if you have poor transport links in the northern metropolis. The East Rail Line is at 94% of its capacity. When you have tens of thousands of people living in the northern metropolis, what will happen? We have received proposals about widening the roads, but we have to bear in mind the strain on public transport. What will we mean by a thriving northern metropolis? Let's bear in mind there are indigenous villages, there are existing local residents, and then in the future you will have tech talent and tourists. So you will have people of all demographic groups. How do we get all of them to want to live there? Mr. YIU Ming mentions bigger flat, bigger living space. That's just one part of the equation. If I live alone with a 3,000 square feet home, I'm alone, I'm lonely. That's hardly a thriving place. So we'll have to look at both private space and public space. There was a downpour yesterday. We'll have to address the problems in the northern metropolis. This development will take 10 to 20 years. The flooding is a long-standing and outstanding problem. Part of the problem is human factors. You have land filling. Land resumption doesn't go far enough. There are people operating illegal storage space, illegal land filling. Actions were taken by the government, but the rivers that were subject to land filling were not reinstated. We just got a call. The road near a farm. The former LegCo member, Ms. Chen Ming, just complained to me about the flooding in the area. The pig farm that we worked at also saw flooding. The downstream area was affected by illegal land filling. We need consent for the northern metropolis to be a thriving place. You can build a new area, but the problems remain in the older areas. With the problems still there, you cannot achieve a thriving place. So can we put some of the $10 billion into the older areas so that the northern metropolis as a whole becomes a harmonious community? That's what we want. Otherwise, the money goes into the new area. You get bigger public rental flats, but the old buildings will remain cramped places. To make sure everybody gets to share in the success, we'll have to do something about the existing issues. An amber rainstorm flooding all over the place. You have to deal with the storm water. We have to address climate change. Otherwise, you will get a waterlogged Northern Metropolis. I so submit. Professor Chen Ming-kwong. The Northern Metropolis will be a new growth engine for Hong Kong. The National 15th Five-Year Plan calls on us to work faster to build the Northern Metropolis. I thank Mr. YIU Ming for his timely motion so that we can discuss this key topic of building a thriving Northern Metropolis. I also support the idea of bigger flats and a bigger living space for everyone. People outside Hong Kong say Hong Kong people live in small homes. That is not exactly accurate, but it is true that people generally live in cramped homes. Back in 2021, figures showed that the living space or floor space per person was only 172 square feet. That's way smaller than the area in places like Singapore and Tokyo. Subdivided units and caged homes define the plight of grassrooters in Hong Kong. The Northern Metropolis will offer 30,000 hectares of land. 3,000 hectares will be new development land. 500,000 flats will be available. This can help us achieve bigger living space per person. The government is taking forward the Northern Metropolis not just to create more jobs, but also to address the long-standing housing issue so that we can improve people's living environment at a fundamental level. We're working on the dedicated legislation for the Northern Metropolis. We're trying to streamline procedures and to remove barriers. That's how we can increase the living space per person. We should seize this opportunity. I support the motion. I call on the government to make the most of the land in the Northern Metropolis. We need bold thinking. We have to overcome the challenges that hold back urban redevelopment. Once we achieve success in the Northern Metropolis, we apply the experience to other parts of Hong Kong so that we give people a better living experience. The motion also calls for ways to encourage private developers to build bigger flats. I give qualified support for this idea. We want better homes for people, but we also want affordable homes for people. Increasing the average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis is not just about housing, it's also about people's health. Medical research shows cramped homes can trigger negative emotions, anxiety, and a sense of helplessness. Now, for children's health and mental well-being, cramped homes can also harm children. Increasing the average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis can meet people's aspirations of bigger and better homes. It's also good for people's well-being. Creating a thriving Northern Metropolis will need more than just bigger homes. It will need social amenities. New towns in Hong Kong were plagued by the problem of infrastructure or supporting facilities failing to keep up. We have to learn from mistakes in the past. We have to plan ahead of time to make sure that when people do move in the Northern Metropolis, they have access to healthcare, schools, shopping centers. In the mainland, new development areas adopt smart equipment such as compaction vehicles for rubbish. For our northern metropolis, we should adopt technology to improve the efficiency of management and also make life easier for people so that people can see the benefits of innovation and technology in the North. As a part of the motion and all amendments. Mr. Brave Chan. We thank the officials joining us at this session. We support Mr. YIU Ming's motion as well as all the amendments. We have to get our 5-year plan right to create a thriving and salubrious northern metropolis. Homes are just the beginning. There are also other aspects of day-to-day life. We also need jobs for people to be happy. Of course, homes come first. You can skimp on food, but you cannot skimp on your shelter. Especially given the downpour today. We want a bigger living space, but we want to be further away from the flooding. President Xi Jinping has been saying that town planning needs to put people first. The best resources should be reserved for the people. The outline of the 15th Five-Year Plan also calls for higher living standards. Back in 2023, Director Xiao Baolong also said that people had high hopes or high expectations for the Northern Metropolis. The Northern Metropolis will be key to Hong Kong's future prosperity. Mr. Tam Chen Kok and Mr. YIU Ming work in that district. They have first-hand experience. Mr. John Lee always puts people first. He launched light public housing. That's to give people access to housing. And for people already with housing, we want to give them bigger homes. Housing is just the starting point. The Northern Metropolis will be an INT center of Hong Kong. We have gone on several visits to the Northern Metropolis. How do we get people to pay greater attention to the Northern Metropolis? Success in the Northern Metropolis will also encourage people from Kowloon and Hong Kong Island to go to the Northern Metropolis. So we will need a pilot. Early success will get people to move there. We have to create more favorable conditions in new development areas to attract people to move there. In the next 5 years, there will be 308,000 public housing units. In the Northern Metropolis, there will be 60 to 63,000 units. That's 40% of the total. And there are 180,000 public flats in total, so 60,000 is quite a large share of it. The composite waiting time for public housing is down to 4.7 years. That's an 8-year low. We commend the government's work on this. We're all talking about the 5-year plan. The chief executive is leading the discussion about the 5-year plan. So how do we achieve bliss? We want greater, faster, better, and more economical results. We want more opportunities. Transport also matters. This is a key priority for the Secretary for the Development. We want more opportunities for young people. There will be unit town. There will be more chances to study and conduct research. There will be innovation, technology, business centers, and there will be quality jobs. And there will also be opportunities for people to start a business. We have to move fast. We all support the blueprint. Our government officials are leading the drive. We want faster results. A downpour is fine. You just have to be draining the water fast enough so that the water won't do us harm. I'm also an independent director of a power company. We have to look at power as well. We want green power. Can we drive down the power tariffs? That can also contribute to bliss.
Ms. Vivian Kong, President, I speak in support of Mr. Yiu's motion on increasing the average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis to build a blissful Northern Metropolis ideal for living. I thank Mr. Yiu for translating the Chinese of harmful into blissful, because very often it's translated into happiness. Blissful include assessment to the external conditions that cover health, that cover time and money for traveling. Blissfulness is a more deeper conditions. It's about inner peace. If we try to strive for blissfulness, then we should remove uncertainties and build security among the people. For the general public, their source of anxiety often is about uncertainties to the future. So if we can provide a ample living space for the people, stable job opportunities, then people will be able to build a sense of belonging, security, happiness to the city. When the government plan for housing and economic land, I hope that they will make the Northern Metropolis livable. And that shows the relationship between development and town planning. When the Northern Metropolis is livable, Thailanders will be willing to stay. If the Northern Metropolis is suitable for tourism, for working, then people will be able to work there. The place will attract travelers. When these places livable, tourists will be willing to come. According to a research study, livable city have become a factors affecting people's choice of destinations. When we strive for tourism and economic growth, we have to have regards to the living conditions of the locals. We need to build a win-win sustainable tourism ecosystem. If we want to achieve that, we need to make the city good for travel when we plan for it. Now, the younger visitors, when they travel to a place, they would want to experience the lives of the local. They strive for immersive experience. If a place is livable, if a place is secure with good law and order, it's convenient with ample green space and vitality, visitors will be more willing to travel there. And by that, we can achieve economic results. And if we make sure that the place is have sufficient carrying capacity for tourists, then we can benefit the locals by driving tourism. In the Northern Metropolis, we're going to have a blue and green eco tourism circle. I think that by combining eco tourism with leisure, we can build our own brand. The government said that they will earmark some $200 million in the budget to establish a rural urban integration fund. I hope that the administration will relax barriers on, say, for example, restrictions on transport infrastructures and hostels accommodations. This is how we can develop our industry. The new growth engine for tourism is about how we can integrate blue and green resources through good stories and good transportation system. And this is how we can package Hong Kong as an attractive and quality tourism products. And this will encourage high-spending travelers to stay a few more days in Hong Kong. Thank you. Mr. Vincent Chang. Thank you, President. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Yu Ming for moving the motion. This topic of average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis is something that we have to discuss. Hong Kong, as the most densely populated cities in the world, the small living space has always been a problem for us. For Shui Po, as an example, according to the Hong Kong 2030 Plus report, the median living space for people there was just as low as 13.7 square meters. That's lower than the average of 16 square meters across the territory. I visited many times families living in subdivided units. The small living space affect their mental well-being. The property prices have been increasing over the past 10 years, and people have always been aspiring for a bigger flat and more affordable housing. I know that the government have been addressing the issues. For example, in April this year, we have implemented the basic housing unit ordinance. It is said that this minimum flat size for the basic housing should be at least 6.6 square meters. That's far better than the existing subdivided units flat size. I visited some of the subdivided units or basic housing unit. If all of them meet the minimum requirement, then living environment of those tenants will be improved. Just as the original motion said, Northern Metropolis will be a new development area with a provision of more than 3,000 hectares of new land. So I support that we relaxing the allocation criteria for public rental housing and increase it from 7 square meters per person that have not been changed for some 30 years. We need to leverage on the opportunities presented to us by the Northern Metropolis because it has so much land. And this is how we can increase the living space per person in Hong Kong. To encourage more people to move to the Northern Metropolis, we need to reshape the layout of our city. In Yaoxianmeng, Shamshui-Po, Kowloon City, we have many aged buildings that are beyond repair or rehabilitation. We need to redevelop them. But the population density of these areas is high. It's difficult for us to redevelop extensively. I remember the Secretary for Development said previously that by building in artificial islands, we can rehouse people and lower the population density in the urban areas. Now, the artificial islands project have been shelved, but with the land supply from the Northern Metropolis, I think that we can achieve the original vision that we had in mind. I know that the administration will build public housing in the Northern Metropolis to rehouse people living in the redevelopment project in the urban area. Northern Metropolis can help urban area redevelopment, and I hope that the government will have regards to the urban redevelopment strategy and provide land for a flat scheme. By increasing the average living space per person, we can improve people's well-being, and I agree that we also have to build ancillary infrastructures. I know that for the Northern Metropolis, it will be industry-led, but in the Northern Metropolis, we're going to provide 500,000 flats, housing some 2.5 million people. We need to also take into account ancillary facilities such as healthcare and transport. And this is how we make people happier. The LCSD said that in Kutong North Area 29, they are going to build fencing training center, and they will build a swimming pool with international standards. I think that this is a good move. For in Chuan Kwan O, we have this bicycle center. If we can include these stadiums in new development areas, we can vitalize the city. Mr. Lau Ka-keung. Thank you. Ms. Grace Chan. Thank you, President. I support the original motion of Mr. Yu. I fully think that we need to increase the average living space per person. Now, our average living space here is just 16.5 square meters. It's far lower than Tokyo and Singapore. By in order to create a livable northern metropolis, we need to work on not just the housing, but also transport, social welfare, so on and so forth. We need to plan the public housing and jobs at the same time. It is said that the northern metropolis will be able to accommodate 2.5 million people. The government said that the NM will be able to offer 650,000 jobs. The employment to population ratio is about 1 to 3.8. That's far lower than the average of 1.2 in Hong Kong. We need to address the issue. In order for us to achieve 1-to-1, this ideal ratio, we need to create about 250,000 jobs in retail, in catering, logistics, social welfare sector. This may be a market-led topic, but say, for example, for public housing, the waiting time is 4.7 years. We have 110,000 people living in subdivided units. If we want to encourage people to move to the northern metropolis, we need to improve our transport facilities and also provide jobs for them. People now have to spend some $40 to $60 on commute and 2.2 hours in public transport. I think that we need to set aside at least 5% of the gross floor area in the northern metropolis for retail so that we can create jobs for people living there. Also, we need to assess the cost effectiveness of various projects in the northern metropolis. According to the health department, it is said that every year 1 out of 5 people living in the community fall. According to the police report, there were 290 people suffering from Alzheimer's got lost in 2020, and the same figures grew to 444 in 2024. If people's living space per person can be increased to 22 square meters, I think that we need to mandate the installation of devices that prevent people going missing or wandering in this community. I think that for every square kilometers, we should install also sensors to prevent people from wandering around so that they can call the police. The money that we have to spend on the installations of these sensors is just $160 million. That's reasonable. I think that saving people in time is important. We need to accord priorities to people's safety and life. Third, I think that we need to build a 15 living circle, and we need to adopt a universal design in planning a walking network. According to the Planning Department's figures, the average open space per person we have is just 2.7 to 2.76 square meters. That's far lower than 4 square meters of that in Shanghai. In order for us to build a 15-minute living circle, we need to have in a community a grocery store, a clinic, park, and bus stop. So I think that we need to set aside 15% of the land for community facilities. Northern Metropolis is a unprecedentedly large project. Over the past 50 years, when we developed new town, we were not able to improve the ancillary facilities because of population density. When we plan for the Northern Metropolis, I hope that the government will establish a public space standard committee so that we can work together with the community organizations to implement the plan. And I think that we need to review the project every 3 years. I so submit. I hope that the government will implement the standards. Thank you.
Mr. Lau Kar-keung, thank you. Deputy President, I thank Mr. YIU Ming for moving the motion and for members for moving amendments so that we can explore this topic of building a blissful northern metropolis in a comprehensive manner. The SAR government is drawing up the first 5-year plan for Hong Kong to better align with national strategies. Northern Metropolis is, of course, pivotal in the process. I have the following suggestions. First, industry-oriented, infrastructure-led approach so as to build a livable community in an integrated manner. For the Northern Metropolis, the focus is on I&T. We must take an industry-oriented approach to attract the relevant enterprises and young high-end talents to set up presence there. We should learn from the mainland experience. There is integration with urban and industrial development for young families to set up presence there and create a livable and ideal circle. Just like the industrial park in Suzhou, advanced planning was put in place with sites reserved for future dynamic planning. Adopting this concept of deep integration of industry and community, we can build a pet-friendly and inclusive, modernized community. On housing policy, we should again adopt innovation to attract more younger families to move there. There should be a flexible mix of flat types and shared community space to facilitate those going to work and those who require other forms of support, such as childcare. On infrastructure, be it transport, domestic transport network, or cross-boundary links, be it digital infrastructure or otherwise, we must first start with site formation and for industries to move there. Only when infrastructure is properly developed will we have the favorable condition for young people to live there. The other suggestion is to build a 15-minute living circle to shorten the commuting time. Definitely, the supporting facilities will be one major consideration when young families move in. There should be a timetable for the provision of livelihood facilities in the Northern Metropolis so that people have confidence in moving there. According to a study, long commuting time will bring anxiety. So a short journey time will, of course, make it convenient for everyone. The crux of building a blissful Northern Metropolis lies in the setting up of a 15-minute living circle. Apart from the NOL and the Hong Kong-Shenzhen West Rail, which connect Northern Metropolis with other areas, the government should also pay attention to transport network within Northern Metropolis. For example, there could be autonomous driving and other green forms of transport connecting the area. A comprehensive plan should be put in place so that people can either ride a bike to work or walk to work, so that we can build a blissful Northern Metropolis ideal for living. I support the original motion and the amendments as so submitted. Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you, President. Mr. YIU Ming has moved a motion for us to discuss the living environment in Northern Metropolis. I'm grateful. In the past, we discussed the industry-led approach and the economic contribution to our country. That's usually the perspective in our previous discussion. Now we are moving on to discussing the living environment. Our goal is to build a blissful Northern Metropolis to enhance a sense of bliss. And I think that when it comes to housing policy, the Northern Metropolis should be set as a demonstration zone. When it comes to innovation and reform, the loop should be made a demonstration zone. I hope that we can have innovation in terms of housing policies as well. The first suggestion is this. Now, in fact, from the FTU and from myself, I have been advocating the same idea for the past 3 years. That is for young people to have a savings scheme This is somewhat like buying uncompleted flats on a voluntary basis, so that upon graduation, young people start to join a saving plan, and then in 8 or 10 years, like Singapore, you'll be able to buy a subsidized flat built by, say, a housing authority or any government department. If a young person joins this savings scheme, it's like preparing for the down payment, and then you can join the lucky draw for HOS flat, and you can then skip the process and go directly to the flat selection stage. This will enhance a sense of belonging, because for young people after graduation, they need to work for 8 to 10 years before starting a family, and by that time it will be important for them to have a roof over the head. And by then I don't need to worry, because I've been saving money for this purpose. So this is a very important concept in terms of major aspects such as housing policy. We need innovation. People criticize the so-called raffle of the HOS because we're always short of housing in Hong Kong. So we need to plan ahead. For young people to join a savings scheme on a voluntary basis, if they contribute for 8 to 10 years, by the time they want to start a family, they will have saved enough to buy an HOS flat, and they don't need to join the lucky draw. This is, after all, the prerequisite for young people to start a family. The other suggestion is about flat for flat in UR8 redevelopment projects. Now, the housing society will no longer roll out kind of service apartments for the elderly. And I am rather disappointed, because for the elderly housing, this is exactly what elderly people want. There are people in their 70s who are still independent. They do not have any kind of impairment. They just need professional care, and they need, they may not, their physical condition may not deteriorate to an extent that they need a care home. They need instead senior citizen residents with, say, some activities downstairs. They're given 2 meals a day, so we should give elderly people this option. There will be housing needs among some elderly people because of the urban renewal efforts. Now, for those living in aged buildings, because of the redevelopment projects, they may wish to enhance their quality of living, and they may want to move into the Northern Metropolis and live in the new kind of elderly housing as well. The third point is about intergenerational housing. For the 3 generations to live together, can we make sure that such flats can be provided to solve the problem of elderly singleton? So the housing in Northern Metropolis should be made a demonstration zone. Professor William Wong, we have a very crowded living space in Hong Kong. The median living space per person in Hong Kong is just roughly 170 square feet. That's the median figure, far below the 300 square feet in Shenzhen or 270 square feet in Singapore. Now, we need to ride on the development of the Northern Metropolis and increase the per capita living space and improve people's quality of living, so as to enhance the sense of bliss and enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. This should be the major direction for Hong Kong in the coming 5 years. We need to increase the per capita living space for the long-term development of Hong Kong. Now, Northern Metropolis will focus on R&T and advanced manufacturing. That means it will be a hub for international R&T talents and middle-class families. If we continue to produce shoebox flats, we will not be able to meet their needs for better living quality. In fact, I come across many research personnel who choose to live in cramped space because they're close to the laboratories, and this will have a direct impact on their physical and mental health. If we want to build a blissful community, we need to have something to attract the high caliber global talents to come and stay here. Now, Shenzhen is very close to Northern Metropolis, and if we continue to have shoebox flats, talents may tend to live in Shenzhen instead. Now, we also need to encourage childbearing, and we need bigger homes to ease the burden. The fourth point is about change of work pattern. Post-COVID, there are more and more slashers and freelancers who work at home. Larger homes will help create a workspace at home, and this will address the issue of working from home. And next, if we want to build a blissful Northern Metropolis, we need to consider three aspects. First, there should be synergistic planning for sites of industrial and residential use. There are still uncertainties in relation to tenant accommodation. So there should be close communication between the Development Bureau and other talent attraction departments so as to keep things flexible in order to strike a balance. Apart from planning for housing, we should also plan for more modernized open space near the I&T areas, and there should be sufficient apartments for talents and young families. And we should adopt the Greater Bay Area perspective when it comes to planning for housing. Now, more and more senior citizens are moving up north after retirement, and we do have flow of talents between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. So when it comes to land and housing resources, we need to have regard to the latest traveling pattern and demographic changes. In a flexible manner, the government should adjust the supply as well as the housing mix. The third point is about livelihood facilities. Increasing the per capita living space is just the first step. We need to provide comprehensive support for the community. Middle class and young families will be moving in to the Northern Metropolis. There will be a higher demand for education, recreational and sports facilities, as well as childcare services. The government should have these in mind when planning for community facilities. Now, there is also a problem with the network in Northern Metropolis. In the new development areas, we should plan ahead to put in place good infrastructure. Because we're living in an era of AI, we need to have good network in order to attract talent. I support the motion and the amendments.
Ms. Christine Fong. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I support Mr. YIU Ming's motion and all amendments. The government should seize the opportunity presented by the Northern Metropolis. We should increase the living space per person in the area. We should improve the quality of living. We should create home-job balance. We should turn the Northern Metropolis into a sustainable area. Take my constituency, which is the southeastern part of Cheung Kwan O. People there and the experience there have shown me the importance of the infrastructure-led approach. The Ta Kung Pao had this headline yesterday: we should put industries first and then people move in for the Northern Metropolis. We should avoid turning the Northern Metropolis into a sleeping city. We cannot let the housing overtake industries there. We have to guard against lengthy administrative approval, among other things. The Housing Bureau has made a pledge by 2031-32 there will be an extra 10% in indoor floor area. I welcome that. Larger flats will also make up 25% of the flat makes up from 20%. And there will be 30,000 hectares of land in the northern metropolis. And that area will be home to 2.5 million people. So we have what it takes to offer a larger living space per person. Hong Kong is working on its first 5-year plan. The northern metropolis can serve a variety of purposes in improving people's well-being, among other things. With the northern metropolis, we can address the cramped living space, a long-standing problem in Hong Kong. We can redefine living standards in the NM. We should launch pilots in the northern metropolis, so we should start by giving people bigger public rental flats. We should also encourage private developers by offering them green incentives to build bigger flats. We should also move faster in building amenities such as healthcare, education facilities, so that the northern metropolis is truly a blissful place with all the ancillary facilities. We should also get the housing mix right. We should ensure orderly adjustments to the housing market. We should instill positive values in the people. The public rental units should be reserved for those most in need. There's also farmland and wetland in the northern metropolis. We should take conservation seriously. We should uphold urban-rural integration. We should protect and maintain the village culture so that humanity can coexist with nature in harmony. The northern metropolis isn't just about building towers. Now, some parts of the new territories have long been sleeping towns. We have to guard against that. Hon YIU will offer many jobs. We can achieve home job balance there. With the Northern Link and the Hong Kong Shenzhen Western Link, which will link up Shanghai and Hon YIU, and it can be linked to the airport. We can turn the area into a place where you have both housing and support facilities. The northern metropolis can address cramped living spaces and home job imbalance. We can provide a bigger living space per person under Cap 123, the building planning regulations. The ceiling height has to be at least 2.5 meters. The rest of our country has proposed new floor to ceiling height at 3 meters minimum, so we should learn from that example. With the greater floor to ceiling height, we can improve ventilation. We should ensure there are windows in toilets, and your time is up. Mr. Mark Chong. Mr. Deputy, I support Mr. YIU Ming's motion and all amendments. I'm an engineer. I'm from the New Territories Northwest constituency. This motion is personal to me. A bigger living space can enhance people's well-being. After a long day at work, they go home, they get a bigger home. That can mean solid improvement in people's quality of life. The motion mentions the report of Hong Kong 2030 Plus. There's an assumption of a 20% increase in the average flat size, and that's the basis for the land projection. The northern metropolis will offer 3,000 hectares of new development land, so we have what it takes to implement that vision. The round table is fully behind this vision, but I want to highlight a message. Bigger flats make people's lives better, but easily accessible transport will make people even happier. You can have a bigger home, but with poor transport links, you have to put up with crowded trains of 2-mile line and you spend 2 to 3 hours on commuting. By the time you get home, you're at the end of your tether and there's no bliss. And with the Northern Metropolis, there will be 500,000 or more people in New Territories Northwest. The transport network cannot cope. That's why the round table has been calling for a rail link for the Northern Metropolis. We have to be bold and we have to plan in advance. We need a Hon YIU Sunny Bay rail link so that people taking the train can go from Tongchong to urban areas. Now, from Chunmun South to Siulam, we should also build a rail link so that people can reach the Hon YIU Sunny Bay rail link. You need this major rail link to ease the pressure on the overcrowded trains on 2-mile line. We can simply look at Shenzhen for how this can work. In Bao'an district, near Shajing and Song'an, people used to think those were remote areas with few support facilities. People were reluctant to move there. But once Route 11 of the Shenzhen Metro opened, everything changed. Route 11 is not a slow line where the train stops at every stop. It's an express lane from Bao'an to Futian, which is the central business district. The trains run fast. It's just a 30-minute train journey. That train line has made life much better for people. Young families and professionals flock to Bao'an. That's because they can afford much bigger homes at much better quality. It's the same commuting time, but offering much bigger living space. And that massively improved the well-being of people in Shenzhen. The success story of Route 11 in Shenzhen shows us that we have to move fast with New Territories Northwest. We need a rail link from Hon YIU to Sunny Bay so that we can achieve success with speed. People wonder a new rail link will cost a fortune, but the public coffers are not exactly awash with cash. What do? That's why we propose a new funding model. We should issue dedicated bonds for transport. I've been championing the idea that connectivity brings wealth. With major transport infrastructure, we should start early. Once you have the connectivity, the land value will go up. The land sale revenue will be able to more than cover the principal and the interest payments of the bond. We should not let the short-term liquidity problem hold us back from long-term development. We need more than just bigger homes. We will need an express transport link like the rail link from Hon YIU to Sunny Bay. We want bigger homes, a faster commute, a shorter commute, and people will be happier. I so submit your time is up. Mr. Alan Chen. Mr. Deputy, Hong Kong people are world known for living in cramped spaces. 2021 figures show that the average living space was only 172 square feet. So how small is that? Let's look at other advanced economies. In the UK, the per person living space is 409 square feet. And that's on the low end for advanced economies. In Germany and France, it's 495 square feet, and it's 463 feet. In the US, it's 710 square feet. Let's look at the members of the OECD. It's somewhere between 431 and 484 square feet. Hong Kong's current level is not even 40% of the level for OECD members. We are in international financial centers, but we offer such cramped homes. How can we offer salubrious living environments that attract and retains talent? For the Northern Metropolis, we're simply trying to catch up with the living space in the new territories, such as the village houses. The talent in the Northern Metropolis can live in Shenzhen, they get a dual license plate, they commute across the boundary. We invest a fortune in the Northern Metropolis, but the professionals there make money in Hong Kong and then spend the money and live in Shenzhen. How can Hong Kong benefit? The Northern Metropolis is an opportunity by offering 3,000 hectares of new development land. This is a great opportunity for us to offer bigger living space to build a thriving Northern Metropolis. I have 3 suggestions. We should make the most of the dedicated legislation. We should set hard and fast targets. In the subsidiary legislation to the dedicated legislation, we should set targets. First, the per-person space of public rental housing should be at least 200 square feet. And that's the minimum for the 2030 plus vision. Second, for subsidized sale flats, the minimum saleable area should be 323 square feet. That's over 30 square meters. For private flats, they should be at least 40% of the flats should be at least 300 square feet. So that should end nano flat. For private flats, they should be required to offer bigger flats. In our land sale conditions, we should require all private flats to offer at least 60% of the flats being at least 400 square feet, and flats at or over 600 square feet should make up at least 30%. We should encourage developers to build truly salubrious flats instead of nano flats. We should adopt new technology to improve the living environment. We should use the S960 steel bars and other new materials to cut construction time and lower cost. Let's learn from Denmark's example and also the Singapore's Housing and Development Board. We should set up a dedicated fund. And we should put 3% of the savings into the fund to improve the building and also encourage private developers to build bigger flats. The government should provide the initial funding, and once we get the rent from the Northern Metropolis, we use that money and put that into the fund. That can ease the burden on the government. That's how we can learn from Denmark and Singapore. We should also set key performance indicators. Now, we should make salubrious living an indicator and see how we compare with places like Shenzhen. We should look at the rent level, housing, healthcare, schooling, accessibility. If the Northern Metropolis falls behind, we fine-tune our policies. This is not an internal appraisal. It's about competing with our neighbors. Improving living space per person is to turn the Northern Metropolis into a salubrious place. The government should show courage. We should be bold. We should create a truly thriving Northern Metropolis. As so submitted, support all amendments.
Mr. Yu Pak-leung. Deputy President, I speak in support of Mr. Yu Ming's motion and the other members' amendment. Housing issue has always been our biggest pain point. Statistics shows that in 2021, our median average living space per person is just 16 square meters compared to other Asian cities such as Seoul, Singapore, and Taipei. Their per person living space is 30 to 35 square meters. Even Tokyo, which is renowned for having a crowded place, their average living space per person is 20.1 square meters. We used to have a tight land supply. That's why our houses are small. That's why our property are expensive. This term of the government tried to catch up. They are innovative. They rolled out this transitional housing, basic housing, and measures alike to shorten the composite waiting time for public housing, to 4.7 years. Northern Metropolis can offer 500,000 flats, accommodating 2.5 million people. So Northern Metropolis is not just our new growth engine, but also a solution to our long-term housing problem. So we need to implement the vision set out in the Hong Kong 2030 Plus report by increasing the average flat size by 10 to 20%. The government should relax the allocation criteria per person for public housing from 7 square meters to a higher figure. This can make our public housing more attractive, alleviate the pressure for the people. President, when I was a district councillor, I received a request for assistance from people trying to get a flat at public housing. Although they will be able to get a flat easier if they're willing to live in a Northern Metropolis, but they're worried about transport facilities. They're worried about whether they can get a job there. As a result, they're not that willing to live in a Northern Metropolis. So in order to actually build a blissful life for the people, we need not just housing, we need transport facilities, we need job opportunities, and and good environment, cultural and historic resources. We need to learn from the previous experience we have with developing new town in the new territories. We have to build ancillary facilities first before we encourage people to move in. So the government should build transport infrastructures such as railways and highways connecting the Northern Metropolis with the town centers. On other facilities, we should build schools, we should build hospitals, welfare facilities. We also need to put in place cycling tracks and leisure facilities. In the Northern Metropolis, we have Robin's Nest Country Park, we have Maipo, we have Long Valley, we have a beautiful coastline. All these are invaluable green and blue resources. We can turn them into leisure space for the people who live there. We have a deep Hakka history and culture in the Northern Metropolis. When we developed the piece of land, we need to conserve and revitalize our culture so that the traditional villages can coexist with modern living. This is how we achieve urban-rural integration. Deputy President, we should not just increase the living space, we need to make people's lives better. When we develop the Northern Metropolis, we need to make a transport network more convenient. We need to make the environment better and improve the eco and cultural resources. This is how we build a blissful and livable Northern Metropolis. I so submit. Mr. Thomas So. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. YIU Ming's original motion and other members' amendment. The motion today is about how we should build a blissful Northern Metropolis ideal for living. I'd like to stress that the Northern Metropolis is more than just a new town. When we developed new town in the past, we used to focus just on residential housing supply. Some movies depict some new towns as a sad city. This may be some sort of exaggeration, but this highlights the lack of job opportunities in certain new towns. It is estimated that the Northern Metropolis will house approximately 2.5 million people, but if we don't have enough job opportunities or ancillary facilities in the area, people living in the NM will have to commute to the urban area using 1 to 2 hours. Say, for example, yesterday there was a serious flooding happened in North New Territories. If we do not address these problems, how can we build a blissful life for the people? President Xi said that the biggest aspirations of Hong Kong people is to lead a better life in which they will have more decent housing, more opportunities for starting their own business, so on and so forth. So in order to build a more blissful life for the people, we need to attract businesses to the Northern Metropolis. And I noticed that the Financial Secretary have established a steering committee on attracting industries and investment. And the steering committee have come up with a preliminary framework on how they attract enterprises with different technologies. And there is criteria on how many jobs these companies have to create. The industry park, the Hon YIU Industry Park, have been injected with some $10 billion with approval from the Finance Committee. If we have enough industries there, then enterprises will come. So I think that the government should implement the concessionary policy package as soon as possible. But to build a blissful Northern Metropolis, we also need legal ancillary facilities. Northern Metropolis will house 1/3 of our population. There will be disputes in different areas arising every day. Also, there we're going to bring in industries on artificial intelligence, biotechnology, etc. So disputes on, say, for example, intellectual property, compliance, cross-boundary litigations may arise. I put in an oral question yesterday and on whether there will be a magistrate in the Northern Metropolis. The administration said that they are going to set aside a site to build a magistrate in the Northern Metropolis. So we're going to have two in the Northern New Territories soon. But I wonder if the district court or the higher court will be able to use the site in the future. Also, I wonder if we're going to build a court on, say, intellectual property, on internet, or other disputes in the Northern Metropolis. We're having a hard time recruiting judges. If we don't address these questions, then our legal service will lag behind the speed of development of the Northern Metropolis. President, overall speaking, I support the motion. I urge the government to make sure that when they build a blissful Northern Metropolis, there will be enough job opportunities in this district, and they should plan legal facilities as soon as possible so that the Northern Metropolis will actually become a metropolis that is livable, that is good for working and traveling. And so submit. Mr. Xiu Kaofai. Thank you, President. The land supply has always been an issue that people are concerned about. They don't just care about the land housing supply, they also are concerned about the living space. The SAR government announced that they have identified 308,000 public housing that covered the demand for the next 10 years. And it is also announced that the composite waiting time for public housing have been shortened from 6.1 years to 4.7 years. I'm sure that many people are glad to hear about the good news, and I recognize the government's efforts. On the average living space per person in Hong Kong, according to the CNSD statistics in 2021, it is 16 square meters. If we compare ourselves to other advanced cities such as Seoul, Singapore, and Taipei, their per person living space is on average 30 to 35 square meters. Our figures is half of that. So how can we build more bigger flats for people to live? That's a question. In 2022, when President Xi came to Hong Kong, they delivered a speech and they have 4 proposals for the government, one of which is to earnestly address people's concern and difficulties in livelihood. President Xi said that currently the biggest aspiration of Hong Kong people is to lead a better life in which they will have a more decent housing. If people are able to live in a bigger space with a better environment, then people will be able to lead a more blissful life, and in turn they will buy more furnitures and groceries, and that will also help with our economy as well as fertility. In the 2022 policy address, the chief executive said that there will be a minimum size for the flats. So for accommodation built in 2026-27, it should not be smaller than 26 square meters. For private housing, as said, end of February 2022, all projects sold by the government, the railway projects, ERA project, and land lease modification applications, there is a restrictions on the minimum flat size of about 26 square meters as well. I support the direction. This is also relevant to the motion today. Northern Metropolis as an important growth engine for Hong Kong. Hopefully, it will house 2.5 million people. And we're going to build 500,000 flats. It accounts for 1/3 of our territory. I think that is suitable for us to treat it as a testing ground for new policy. The government planned to build 500,000 flats in the Northern Metropolis, housing 2.5 million people. If that's a set figure, by increasing the flat size, will the number of flats to be offered be reduced? We need to think about that. For private developments, we all know that when we do business, all we want is to make money and make sure that we are accountable to our shareholders. Is it feasible for us to ask the private developers to just build a bigger flat? I think that we need to be more practical. If our goal is that we want to have our private developers build bigger flats, should we not provide more concessions? Say, for example, discounts on land premium or stamp duty, or perhaps we should relax the plot ratio so that they have support. By including these conditions in the agreement, then we can encourage them to build bigger flats. I think that this is something that we can think about. After bigger flats are being built, will they be affordable? What about people who want to buy just small and medium flats? Will we be able to address their demand? People care about their living environment. We need to care about everyone.
Mr. Dominic Lee. President, we live in a small and crowded place. We have deep-seated conflicts and a per capita living space fall far below that of neighboring cities. This impacts on our physical and mental health. It also disincentivizes younger families to young people to raise a family. So this is an imminent issue. Now, the Northern Metropolis will be the major economic driver in the future. It will provide 3,000 hectares of new development land, and this is the right opportunity to make a breakthrough and allow people to live in bigger homes. I thank Mr. YIU Ming for moving today's motion. The New People's Party gives its full support to the motion. Apart from relaxing the allocation standard, we can also learn from the Singaporean experience. We can plan like Singapore, adopting the community living room concept. Singapore attaches great importance to public open space in residential neighborhoods. Of course, they have bigger homes as well. Then outside of their homes, they also have very good supporting facilities. They have hawker centers, that is cooked food centers, sports halls, greenery and parks. In the Northern Metropolis, the government should adopt a concept of a 15-minute living circle. Under the infrastructure-led approach, we can provide high-quality, weatherproof community facilities for the public so that residents can continue to enjoy themselves both inside and outside of their homes in the community in order to achieve better living quality. Upon reaching this target, that is, allowing people to live in bigger homes, we can then move on to something that is a hype in the mainland, and that is the fourth generation homes. That is to build something like a garden mid-air. I've read a lot of posts on X, that's Twitter and other social media platforms. This is favored by many foreigners. We have Chengdu, Changsha, and the other mainland cities actively rolling out such an initiative. That is to build private gardens and greenery in the middle floors of buildings, and there will be GFA concession. For some skyscrapers, we also allow more green space there. So when we plan for Northern Metropolis, we can adopt a similar concept. That means we should work on amendments to the buildings ordinance so as to do away with restrictions to promote the provision of balconies, landscaped gardens, and vertical greening. The other point is about Gyrantech. We should adopt a unified standards for PRH in Northern Metropolis. In Japan, they have introduced a reform as well. We have some smart anti-fall devices, sensors, barrier-free activity space, and methanol-free green building materials to convert old homes into elderly-friendly residences. I know that this is being discussed by one of the panels here. Now, when it comes to elderly-friendly housing, how do we incorporate this concept in the overall development of the Northern Metropolis? Because we do have an existing policy to promote intergenerational inclusion, but that is dedicated to aged residents affected by redevelopment. Now, we have deep-seated housing problems in Hong Kong. We have very low per capita living space, and this is a deep-seated problem. The Northern Metropolis provides an historic opportunity for us to do something to tackle the challenge. Now, there is a lot on the plate of the government, but with the concerted effort of the bureau chiefs, I believe, together with the support of the LegCo, we will definitely be able to resolve the housing problem, and that we'll be able to build a blissful Northern Metropolis.
Mr. YIU Ming, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, President. First of all, I thank the members for speaking on my motion and the amendment. Their views have enriched the motion, and this helps us paint a clearer blueprint for building a blissful Northern Metropolis. I agree with all the amendments, and I'm glad that the members have reached a consensus on how we should build a blissful Northern Metropolis. First, we should extend the experience with the Northern Metropolis across the territory. It is said that we need to accumulate experience when we build Northern Metropolis and extend the plan to other areas in the territory by increasing the average living space per person in Hong Kong. And I also think that we should trial new policies in the Northern Metropolis. Our goal should not be just increasing the average living space. We need to build a better community. If we achieve a result in the Northern Metropolis, we can extend the standards to other areas. By improving the standards on redevelopment for older districts, everyone in Hong Kong can benefit. This is not just about Northern Metropolis. This is an opportunity for us to upgrade the living environment for Hong Kong. Second, we need to increase the ratio of larger flats and improve subsidized sale housing. Mr. Man-kwong said in his amendment that we need to increase the supply ratio of larger flats for public housing, suitably increasing the flat size of subsidized sale housing. Also, we need to optimize the design and basic provisions of subsidized sale housing. I fully agree with that. Many families who have a plan to have children or live with many different generations have great demand for 3 or 4 bedroom flats. For larger families, we should allow them to be able to buy bigger subsidized sale flat. By optimizing the design, we're not just increasing the living space, but make the living environment better. If we improve the ventilation, increase storage space, then it makes people happier. Third, we need to make use of new technology and relax development parameters. Mr. Augustine Wong said in his amendment that government should adopt modular integrated construction method and relax the development parameters of public housing in NM to expedite the construction of public housing in NM and avoid affecting the supply of public housing in NM due to the increase in average living space per person. I fully agree with that. By increasing the flat size, it does not necessarily result in a lower supply. The government need to introduce more efficient construction method, say for example MIC, to make sure that there is flexibility for us to provide more ample living space with more flats. Fourth, we need to introduce livability elements that are compatible with the lifestyle of young families. This is proposed by Mr. Dennis LEUNG. In order for us to develop this new district, we need younger generation. Young families focus not just on living space, they care about the vitality of the community, childcare support, and job opportunities. For us to make Northern Metropolis more livable, we need to make sure that younger families are willing to move there. We can, for example, provide for shared working space, playground, cycling track, pet-friendly environment. These elements directly impact the decision of younger families whether or not to move to the Northern Metropolis, and this decides on whether or not NM can pull together talents. Overall speaking, this is a starting point for us to build a blissful Northern Metropolis, and I hope that people in NM can live well in the district, and I hope that all members will support my motion and all of the amendments. This is how we can build a truly livable and blissful Northern Metropolis for the next generation. I so submit.
房屋局副局長。
Undersecretary for Housing. Madam President, once again I thank Mr. YIU Ming for moving his motion, and I also thank the 4 members who moved amendments, as well as the many members who spoke. I want to thank all of them for their concern for the Northern Metropolis, especially for the housing development there. They have shared valuable views. Based on these ideas and suggestions, I will offer a response in 4 areas. First, bigger homes. In my opening remarks, I mentioned measures such as setting a minimum saleable area for all newly completed subsidized sale flats, and also a bigger minimum flat size for rental units, and also increasing the floor area by 10%, and also increasing the share of larger flats from 20% to 25%. The Housing Bureau will continue to review the success of various schemes, and we will look for room for improvement. On better homes, the Housing Bureau has been hearing from all sides to continuously respond to public needs. In recent years, there has been a shift in the way people live. A more open flow space is more popular with young people. That's why more than half of the units under the sales program of Home Ownership Scheme 2025 adopt the new light first design. The space is more versatile outside the kitchen. And we've also adopted a new design for kitchens and bathrooms so that people can make the most of the space. So we'll continue to hear from all sides to improve the layout of internal space and as a way to enhance the design of public housing units. We want public housing to be more than just a basic abode, but we want to turn those units into hearth and home, so we will tailor design to local needs. We will blend the public housing in the Northern Metropolis into the unique surrounding natural environment. We will turn the flats into a salubrious place. We will follow the well-being design guide to ensure proper management of the living environment. There will be a universal service space, fitness and recreational facilities, shared space, age-friendly facilities, and green space for intergenerational harmony so that the people can live in a pleasant, interactive, and caring space. On helping young families buy homes, under the current term government, we have adopted modular integrated construction to ramp up housing production. The next 5-year period will see an extra 50% in new flats to be completed from the previous term. We're launching more subsidized sale flats, and that improves the chances of people getting to buy those flats. The Northern Metropolis will offer 60,000 subsidized sale flats. Among the buyers, those aged below 40 make up the majority. In the 2025 sales program, which closed its application yesterday, white form young applicants get an extra lot number. For first-hand subsidized sale flat, the mortgage default guarantee ranges between 90 to 95%. Starting from 2030, the maximum repayment period will be extended from 25 years to 30 years. For the families with newborn flat selection priority scheme, this improves the chances of families with young toddlers to select flats, and that's creating favorable conditions for the upward mobility for people. We will continue to work on our tasks. We hear from all sides. We will work with other departments to improve support facilities to give residents a better living experience that will enhance the public sense of well-being and sense of gain. I so submit.
Secretary for Development. President, today's debate allows us to explore the development direction of Northern Metropolis and how we should improve the livelihood supporting facilities. I thank members for their invaluable views. Northern Metropolis is not the same as the new town approach previously adopted. We take an industry-led approach and industry-driven approach. We also provide livelihood facilities to attract talents to live and work here. Since it's industry-led, we are confident that we'll be able to achieve work-life balance for the community. And we'll work on 3 fronts. The first is to adopt a people-oriented land use approach. We adopt a 15-minute living circle concept, and we will reasonably distribute the relevant facilities in the community, such as transport locations, shopping, catering facilities, and basic community needs. So that people can either walk or ride a bike to have their needs met in 15 minutes. The second point is about transport connectivity. There are 9 NDAs supported by the railway network or strategic highways. There are also cycling tracks and walkways to facilitate a smart and healthy commuting model. There is also a smart and green mass transit system to support MDAs such as Hong YIU, Hachun to meet the commuting needs. The third point is a quality public open space and blue-green network. We have different public open space sites with greening ratios to promote urban-rural integration. Now, on Northern Metropolis, in the past few years, the government has focused its efforts on macro planning and also land use planning the government has also applied for funding for site formation and infrastructure facilities. These efforts have helped build a good foundation for the development of Northern Metropolis to ensure that there will be sufficient land and infrastructure to support future development. The Northern Metropolis has now transformed to another phase. We need to boil down to the specifics and focus on detailed design and implementation. At this stage, we must not just ensure the quantity of housing production, we should also focus on floor area, design of community facilities, the timing, as well as the quality. We need to take a micro perspective in taking forward these tasks. So this is indeed a timely debate. Now, unlike the previous new town developments, for the development of Northern Metropolis, we have set up the Northern Metropolis Coordination Office. The office is responsible for coordination, taking into account the development timetable of different NDAs. I will coordinate the work of different policy bureaus and government departments and plan in a micro manner. This will be followed by the implementation of a timetable. One example is that next Tuesday we will consult the panel on development on a Kutong North Joint User Complex and Joint Use Office. Another example is a primary school that will be built by the Education Bureau next to this Joint User Complex. The Health Bureau is also considering a new hospital in Northern Metropolis, which will be incorporated in the 10-year hospital development plan. On the welfare facilities, about 5% of the floor area in public rental housing projects will be set aside for the relevant uses. As for what welfare facilities should be provided on which site and in which project, we will work out the details with the relevant policy bureaus. As for revitalizing the cycling track in a public open space, the relevant construction costs and the arrangements will be put in place by the CDD. This will be incorporated in the site formation works of the NDA and infrastructure projects, so that at the stage of population intake, these facilities will be commissioned for use. Now, some members also mentioned urban-rural integration and conservation of sites with high ecological value. One example is the Sanpo-Shu Nature Conservation Park. At this next stage, when we apply for funding for site formation and associated infrastructure works for Shantian Technopole, we will apply for funding for the development of Sanpo-Shu Nature Conservation Park as well. And by then, we will brief members of the panel on our strategies on urban-rural integration. Now, in this debate, we understand that the members share the same views on a number of matters. First, we need land in order to create the prerequisite to improve our living environment. Two, when it comes to new development areas, we want to produce more flats, we want to produce better flats, and the Northern Metropolis will be the demonstration zone where quality will be the focus. The third point is that a number of members mentioned when it comes to Northern Metropolis development, we need to take forward urban renewal as well. And in fact, we've proposed a transfer of plot ratio, and we'll explore a more effective flat-for-flat arrangements with the URA. We need to ride on this opportunity to improve people's living space, and I would say that members' suggestions are highly aligned with what government has in mind. Earlier, when the government conducted land planning for the 2030 Plus initiative, we already adopted a more aggressive assumption on flat sizes. With more and more spade-ready sites coming on stream in the Northern Metropolis, we do have the conditions to adopt in a progressive manner these aggressive assumptions as we take forward housing projects. In fact, the Undersecretary for Housing already expressed their wish to put in place a plan. In my opening remarks, I also mentioned that for building plan submissions in the private sector, the average unit flat size has already exceeded the minimum requirement of 26 square meters. In fact, in general, the unit size is now around 36 square meters, and this is good news. So when it comes to a private market, it is not the case that every time the government must provide incentive in order to push things, take things forward. The incentives might relate to land premium or the relaxation of plot ratio, and even without these incentives, the market will respond to people's aspirations. Now, how do we take it further? On the basis of the minimum size requirement, how do we encourage developers to make bigger flats? Some members mentioned our considerations, and there are practical ones. Say the housing authority is responsible for public housing production, and the private market is responsible for private housing, of course, and we need to consider developers' return. We also need to consider the demand from different strata of society on flat sizes. We need to consider buyers' affordability, and also whenever we lay down hard indicators, or if we adopt a higher indicator, there might be a knock-on effect in the property market. So we need to gauge the impact carefully. We need to conduct an analysis. President, the government is now drawing up the first 5-year plan. The Northern Metropolis is, of course, one major topic, and we will realize the vision of Northern Metropolis so as to show the government's commitment in improving urban planning and enhancing people's living quality. At the same time, the first 5-year plan should also be not only a policy document, but something that can be translated into action. That means in the coming 5 years, the government will, in a progressive manner, roll out relevant initiatives. I thank members for the debate and their invaluable views. These will serve as a very important reference for us. The Blissful Northern Metropolis should not just be a vision. It should be part of an action plan. We need to have regard to the market, and we need to work with members of the public in different sectors. With a joint effort, I hope that Northern Metropolis will be a new demonstration zone so as to provide a better living environment for all and inject new impetus for Hong Kong's development.
I now call upon Ms. Michelle Tang to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that the amendment moved by Ms. Michelle Tang be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the EC and those returned by the FC and GC. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Man-kwong, as the previous amendment has been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Man-kwong be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the EC and those returned by the FC and GC. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Augustine Wong, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Augustine Wong be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the EC and those returned by the FC and GC. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Dennis LEUNG, as the previous amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that the further amendment moved by Mr. Dennis LEUNG be passed. And now put the question to you as stated. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that is, those returned by the election committee and those returned by the functional constituencies and geographical constituencies. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. YIU Ming, you still have 2 minutes, 11 seconds to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Thank you, President. There are 41 members who have spoken on my motion. I thank them for their views. The members have discussed about how we can build a blissful Northern Metropolis, and I think that the Northern Metropolis will be a testing ground for us to build bigger flats for the people. Some members said that by building a bigger flat does not mean that people can live in a bigger space. We need to encourage PRH tenants to move upward on the housing ladder. We need to redevelop old districts. I agree with that. Currently, the allocation criteria of 7 meters per square meters per person have not been changed for some 30 years. The newly built public housing just stayed at the minimum requirement. I think that in the Northern Metropolis, we are going to have more land, so we can increase the allocation criteria to create bigger flats so that people, after moving in, can live in a bigger space. By increasing the average living space per person in the Northern Metropolis, we can create a better life for the people. In the North New Territories, it have been raining and there have been flooding. I think that this highlights the weakness of the Northern Metropolis. I hope that the government will build a sponge city in the North Metropolis and create a comprehensive drainage and pedestrian network so that the Northern Metropolis and Hong Kong can better cope with extreme climate conditions and make our city more livable and safe. Lastly, I thank the members for their views and support. Let's work together and start building a better and a bigger living space for the people. Thank you. And I put the question to you that the motion moved by Mr. YIU Ming as amended by Ms. Michelle Tang, Mr. Man-kwong, Mr. Augustine Wong, Mr. Dennis LEUNG be passed. Will members please proceed to vote? Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present, that's those returned by the EC and those returned by the FC and GC. I declare the motion as amended passed. I now adjourn the council until 11 a.m. on Wednesday, 27th of May, 2026.
會。